Hinterland Education Development, Technical and Vocational Training, Literacy Enhancement. Education is on the move. On Education Spotlight, we look at developments within the education sector and how Guyanese can take advantage of the opportunities available.
Good day and welcome to Spotlight. We are once again speaking on the topic of the issues of hairstyles in schools and freedom of expression. We have two guests today, Ms. Tamika Fraser Henry and Ms. Crystal Carroll. I think by now the issues would have been ventilated, and I'd like to go straight into welcoming the guests and just give a brief introduction to yourselves and a summary of what your position is on the issue of hair and how we go forward from these discussions. Ms. Fraser Henry.
Thank you, Rua. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tamika Henry Fraser.
Henry Fraser.
The Fraser is attached as a result of the wedding. Most persons know me as the creator of CurlFet, which is Guyana's Natural Hair and Beauty Expo. It is the largest natural hair and beauty expo in the Caribbean, and it's also a forum where we empower small business owners, particularly women. Apart from that, I am also the deputy director at the Forensic Lab, so I'm a scientist by nature, but the issue of natural hair and representation and just being able to have some kind of change when it comes to these issues, it's very important to me. And so that's why I think it's important that I also lend my voice to this conversation. I'm grateful that we're getting an opportunity to speak on these topics. I think, of course, it is necessary. It is long overdue. And I know the fact that it has taken so long to have this conversation is an area of contention. And one of the main reasons why people had the negative reaction that they had to the memo that was published by the Ministry of Education. Right. But not, again, to overventilate those issues. I do want to say that, you know what, it has taken us too long to get here. But I respect that we are here. I'm happy that we're here. And I think moving forward, we need to determine what the basis of these rules are, change these rules, and ultimately create an ecosystem where our students can learn academically, but also be developed properly as adults.
Okay. Ms. Carl, you're a recent student in high school, so you're at university now. So just a brief introduction yourself and what your summary thoughts are on the issue.
Okay, so my name is Crystal Carroll. I am a former student of the USMRI Secondary as well as the Bishop's High School. And my take on the topic is, even though I'm fresh out of school, I experienced what it was like being a young teenage girl in school, specifically a young African girl in school, and experiencing the stigma of my hair and the texture of my hair and not being able to wear my hair in styles I'm comfortable with, or wearing styles that are easy so I can attend school specifically on time as well. During my time at school, I was not the only person that experienced this, and at times it would be a discussion among students, as well as sometimes would involve teachers as well, as to try to voice our opinions on these issues, but our concerns were never heard. I was just thrown out as though it was nothing within school. So it's an honor to be here today, to be able to voice my opinion and to, in hopes, be heard.
So, can I ask you directly, going forward, because you're fresh out of these discussions and fresh out of the experience, what do you think should be the solution at the national level?
I think the solution should be that these rules should no longer be within our schools. Like Tamika said earlier, it's been too long that we've been experiencing this, and now that a lot of people are being able to voice, and I think that the memo that the Ministry of Education put out, I think that they put it out as something positive, but as part of the natural community, I don't think one day of being able to show my hair or wearing my hair how I want is enough. I don't see it as empowerment. I think empowerment should be something that I'm able to wear my hair throughout the school year, every single day, Monday to Friday, and not just on weekends, because as well as not only are they forcing us to hide our hair, many of the styles that they want us to do as well, it is damaging to our hair as well, as they want us to corner it, because if we cannot pull our hair into a style where puff will be shown, if some of us, our hair is not long enough to be braided at the ends, cornrows constantly every single week and just being able to lose it just to replait it again by Sunday, it's damaging to the hair as well.
So it's, for you, it's a mixture of both self-expression as well as the practical aspects of hair management. If I were to put it to you that the argument is that the styles that are opposed are a matter of aesthetic, and the schools don't want, the issue here is about neatness, what would be your response?
I don't think it's about neatness.
No.
I understand that cornrows, and I think it's just a matter of, I think it's just a situation whereby I'm speaking as a African person. I do not know the experience of someone of another race, but specifically a hairstyle, let me give an example. Me pulling my hair into one, there would be a puff at the end. I do not have straight hair.
Yes.
My hair will not be able to flow right down into the back. I pull my hair into one, there will be a puff at the back. I cannot control that, and I will not straighten my hair every single morning so my hair could be straight down. If somebody can do that naturally, that's good for them. But I really don't think it's a matter of neatness, because if I can't do the same hairstyle as somebody else and I'm the only person that's being bombarded for it, I don't think neatness, if that's what they see it as, if neatness is what I don't.
You think it's a factor?
Yeah.
All right.
And I just wanted to jump in on Crystal's point about neatness. I absolutely agree with you. It really isn't just about neatness. And then beyond that, if for the sake of argument we say it's about being neat and tidy, who then gets to define what neat and tidy is? What definition are you using? And I think when we start to define these terms, we have to be careful that we don't have internal bias when we're defining these terms. You know, and many persons are saying, you know what, it has to do with our colonial background, and then what, according to the Europeans, what was defined as neatness. Things being straight, things being sleek, things being smooth. But like Crystal said, the texture of our hair cannot do that. It's simply not possible for it to do that. So that means I am born unneat.
Yes.
So you are asking me by definition.
By a prejudicial definition.
By a prejudicial definition, I am born unneat.
Yeah.
I am born untidy.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we need to check those definitions and be careful of how we apply these terms, especially to our young people, because you are informing them of their self-view.
Yes.
And if you keep giving them a negative connotation to how they view themselves, you know, it's going to have a whole host of spin-off issues.
Yeah. You spoke about the fact that you're happy that the conversation that we're having now, and this is part of a series of talks, and I think the minister herself has been front and center on this conversation. Two things. One is a conversation where you think it's going to lead, but before you address that, you started with a group of friends, some young women from the elite high schools that started in Forest District.
Elite high school.
Yeah. Who took it upon themselves? I think you were all in your 20s when this happened. To start CoralFet.
Okay. So I had the idea for CoralFet because of experiences I've had throughout my life. And I think the final experience in me, the nail in the coffin, if you will, was when I was Miss Universe in 2010.
Yeah.
I competed in Las Vegas, and at the time when I competed, I had the weave, my hair was long, and it was straight.
Yes.
And then once I got to Miss Universe, I recognized that all of the other black girls were doing the same thing. There was one black girl who wasn't, and she became the token of the whole experience.
Yes.
When I went to the judges, the people who were judging me, none of them looked like me. None of them had my definition of beauty.
Yes.
Needless to say, I didn't win that competition,
Yeah.
which was fair enough. Returned to Guyana, and I realized that the stress of installing the weave and so on had damaged my hair.
Yeah.
I did a big chop. And so when I was handing over my crown to my successor, the next Miss Universe, I did so bald. And I cannot tell you the negative comments that I got as a result of being a bald Miss Universe. My hair was my beauty, you look terrible, you look mannish. All of these negative things were coming from me from people of different ethnicities, even from people who were black. And
Yes.
you wouldn't expect that. I say all that to say, experiencing that in 2010 and then doing the big chop afterwards, not finding products and so on.
Just for the clarification of unschooled people like me, what do you mean by the big chop?
Oh, I'm so sorry. The big chop is when you cut all of your relaxed or processed hair off to regrow your hair natural.
Okay.
That's basically what that term
Okay, so it's a drastic,
means. It's a drastic
taking off
change.
of all the damaged hair, etc.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I had the idea for CurlFet because I felt
Yeah.
like our hair needed to be celebrated.
Yeah.
It needed to have its own forum where we could say our hair is beautiful, but more than that, this is how we take care of our hair.
Yeah.
These are the products that we use. I shared that idea with a childhood friend of mine, Denisha Victor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she is no longer with us, but at the time, she of course supported the idea,
Yeah, I
and
remember.
together we started CurlFet.
Yeah. You're Tugville girls.
Talkable Girls,
Yeah.
Basically. She's a graduate of St. Joseph.
You're QC.
I'm from QC,
Yeah.
and we did it together.
Listen. So, which brings me to the other question. How do we go forward from here in terms of this conversation has started? What action do you think the conversation should lead to, and when should this action take place?
Okay.
You already said that the conversation is late.
It's late, but it's
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that. I think that the conversation needs to go beyond just a conversation, obviously. We need
Yes.
to literally change the policies. What I thought was interesting, I heard the minister say in our interview a few days ago on Gordon Mosley's radio show that there is no rule
Yes.
from the Ministry of Education that is mandating
Yeah.
the hair to be done a certain way. That means that the schools are taking it upon themselves through their leadership to do this. So one of the main things that needs to happen is we need to standardize these rules. We
Oh.
need to have a standard across the board dictating or advising more or less what the rules are concerning how men and women should look when they are, boys and girls should look when they are in school. That's the
Okay.
first thing. The drafting of those rules should not be a one-sided conversation. You need to have feedback from different stakeholders, including students, teachers, parents, even members of the religious community, because there is a religious aspect to the conversation as well. So I think
How
that.
so? If
Oh, do you want to go on a tangent there? Okay,
Yeah.
so, and it's funny, I was thinking about this before. In Guyana, we have this policy of religious freedom. It's one of our human rights, and around the world, we subscribe to that.
Yes.
To be able to express your religion. People don't realize that having locks is a part of a religious expression.
Yeah.
For some persons, indeed, it is a style,
Yes.
but for other families, it is their religion.
Yeah.
And being able to wear your hair locked is an expression of your belief.
Yeah.
So when you send a Rasta child home from school, you are denying them education on the basis of their religion.
Yeah.
You cannot send an Islamic girl home because of her hijab, because you don't like the color of her hijab.
Yes.
That would be discrimination.
Okay.
There would be an uproar.
Yes.
Why is it okay to do that to the men and women who have locks? I keep saying men and women. The boys and girls who are in school that have locks, because
Yes.
you are denying them their religious freedom. So that's why I said there's a religious component to it as well.
Okay.
So just to summarize, change the rules, standardize it, and do so based on consultation with the people who are actually affected by these rules.
Okay. You had mentioned, Crystal, that there were discussions in school, so many bishops, that involved not only students but teachers as well. Could you share what the consensus was with regard to these discussions, or what the points of discussion were?
Okay, so I'd never had this kind of discussion at the Bishop's High School that much. I think the ones that were more impactful was at the Wesemar Secondary.
So it started, your issue started,
It started
in
at the
West Dem.
Wesemar Secondary. I had relaxed hair, like I stated earlier, at my old school, and a lot of my friends, they were naturals already. They had their natural hair. They never relaxed their hair and stuff. And almost every day they will be pulled in for their hairstyle because some of my friends, they wouldn't adhere to these rules. And also there were teachers as well. Sometimes when it wouldn't be just, some teachers wouldn't just tell you to, okay, you cannot wear this hairstyle or go home or don't come back with it tomorrow. Sometimes these rules would turn into insults, as in teachers telling you that your hair is dirty, it's untidy, if you don't use gel to slick your hair that day, if you come back with the same hairstyle from yesterday, teachers are going to pull and ask you if you comb your hair today, why is your hair this frizzy? We would get remarks of such, and majority of the times these remarks came from teachers, senior teachers.
Yes.
And I think that it's known by now that they're senior and junior teachers.
Okay.
There are some teachers that you will be able that share the same view as us, but they would not point their views out or say their views out loud simply because of their stature within the school.
Okay.
So sometimes these students would go to these teachers and say, Miss, why am I being bombarded? Miss, why am I being sent home for this? Miss, why can she wear this but I can't wear this? Why is her hair open? Why is her hair colored at the end? And these teachers would be like, girl, I don't know, but there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not in the position to say anything about this situation. That will be it.
Crystal just said girl in the representation of the conversation she had. And the presumption was when she spoke, there was a gendered aspect to it, and that you presumably were speaking to female teachers.
Yes,
for the most part.
teachers.
When you started Coral Fed, and I've attended a couple, the predominance was on women and hair, etc. Is there a missing aspect of the conversation that has to do with boys and men? And how do we address that going forward? Because the preponderance, again, seems to be
With women.
women.
And I totally agree with that. I do think that we tend to focus more on women, particularly with this issue. Again, it was International Women's Day and it is relevant.
Of course,
but of
yes.
course, the young men are being affected as well. Very simply, for example, you have to have a certain length of hair when you are in school as a young man, which means that now your parent has to find money to cut your hair every weekend to keep that down. We talk about, we don't want to cause economic issues for parents, but then you're asking them to do these things, and the boys are affected by that. And if that's not done, then they obviously can't attend school, and all of these things have spin-off effects. So I do think that the men need to be included in the conversation, and a larger point is that many times men are the ones policing the bodies of women and the hair of women and deciding what is appropriate for a woman to wear and how she should have her hair.
Do you believe this is at the school level? Do it exist? I mean, or at a policy level?
When you look at the composition of school boards and of PTAs, and we truly understand the voices that are making these rules,
yes.
I think we can have this conversation with even more evidence and understand that, you know what, there are men that are very vocal in this conversation, and the question is, should they be? And if we have men making these policies and really telling women what to do with their bodies, that's a basis of other aspects of how we control the bodies of women.
Okay. Is it that men are vocal, or is it that their paternal prejudices are heard or felt? Because I don't see too many men looking at the gender thing debate, but I think you have a sense that there's a male influence.
Yeah. The patriarchy is. As we love to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does it extend beyond here then? If it is that this is one thing, does it extend beyond here? And if so, how does it extend beyond here?
I think it extends into fashion as well. Here is one aspect of self-expression, and so is fashion. And so we do see the patriarchy in terms of what we define as decent attire or attire that's appropriate for women. And if women dress a certain way, they believe a certain thing about themselves, and we're doing it for the male gaze. As a matter of fact, many times in school, and a friend of mine actually raised this point, that whenever girls are corrected or disciplined in school, they say, you know what, you can distract the boys if you put your hair a certain way, or if your uniform is too tight, you can distract the boys. And the responsibility is put squarely on the woman and on the girl. Whereas, are we teaching our men and our boys to be responsible for how they respond to women and girls in these situations? It's not just our responsibility, the men need to be taught these lessons as well. And so you feel the influence of the patriarchy even in those scenarios.
Good. Excellent.
I think that to add on to what she says as well, I think that argument specifically goes on to the teachers as well, because it's known that teachers have rules how tight their clothing should be. They should not be wearing armless tops, even if it's a broad top, simply because of the males in the classroom. While I was at Bishop's High School, this was spoken in class by a particular teacher who I will not mention. She clearly stated that she's not going to adhere to that rule in school. That day she had a broad shirt on. No, it was a dress. And she came in a bit off. And when we asked her, she was pulled in because of her
bare arms,
the arms that day. And I think we had like a 50-minute conversation on that, and then we were comparing it. Why don't the males have the same rule? Because their shirts can be as tight, but the female teachers, they can't have the same attire as the men.
Yep.
So
there's a disparity there for sure. And there's actually two things I want to touch on based, again, on what Crystal said before I forgot. You keep saying pulled in, as in the person is called in, and sometimes that pulled in is physical. So now we have an aspect of girls being treated with violence in school because of their hair. I've heard stories of girls being yanked by their ponytails, yanked by their pom-poms, because of their hairstyle. So you have these biased rules, and now you are exercising violence to enforce these rules, and you are sending girls home. We don't need girls to be sent out of school. We need reasons for girls to stay in school.
Yes. Okay.
And now you're using hairstyle as a way to do that. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I remember you asked what also needs to happen. I think it needs to get to the point where, if not legislation, but at least something even beyond the schools where hair discrimination does not happen in the workplace. Because our students then go into the workplace and they meet the discrimination.
You sort of preempted me with that, because this discussion has been centered on what happens in schools. And I think it's a fair view to say that schools are preparatory institutions for wider society.
Right.
So if it is that we are making the argument that these rules exist in this preparatory institution, then we're also making the argument that the rules that prepare these people, these young people, to go into society that exercises these same rules, more or less. And so you have that sort of perpetuation of the rules. So how do you envision that wider conversation happening?
Well, that's why I said I think it needs to be at the legislative level. For example, there are several countries around the world that are passing actual legislation to prevent discrimination in the workplace. The US has the very popular Crown Act, where it makes it illegal for employers to deny you a job or an interview based on your hair or based on your appearance. And so I think we need to have those conversations with people, with our lawmakers, with the people who contribute to the laws. And that, in fact, would be citizens. So town halls would be a good place to start, and to get these conversations out in the open and to actually draft things in documents that will protect our young people with these issues.
Okay.
I would say also something that I don't think people of other race, they're not educated about their hair and how their comments and their actions affect us as well. So I think people need to educate themselves and be careful of what they say, because it can have long-term effects on particular students' lives. Coming out of school and now being able to express myself and be able to learn about myself, my hair, how to care my hair. I can know, because like I said, I'm not working, so I'm trying my best now to learn about my hair and myself.
You view yourself as African.
Yes.
And the issue of hair, and this has been both the subtext as well as, in most cases, some very overt component of the conversation. With Coral Fett, if I remember, as it evolved, even in name, presumed a diversity and in the models that you presented, etc. How do we represent the concept of individual ethnic identity against the backdrop of the very real diversity we have? Who gets to define? Because we spoke about who gets to define who's neat, etc. But who gets to define what is a right with regard to hair expression?
I think Guyana is such a unique place with the mix that we have, and it makes every conversation a little bit more difficult because we do have the diversity. Using Curl Fete as an example, Curl Fete is not necessarily a black event. However, the focus is on black empowerment. And we include other ethnicities in that conversation because, like Crystal said, education is important, and them understanding it, it's important. And so I think ultimately, if a rule affects a certain ethnic group in the majority sense, then that ethnic group needs to have the greater say on that rule. Particularly as it relates to the hairstyle rules. It's not a racial issue, it's not a political issue. But the fact is, disproportionately, black girls are affected. And so we need to have black girls at the forefront on this issue and to talk about how this affects them. We need to have black families as well talking about this. Of course, Guyana, again, is mixed. You have other ethnicities that have curly hair and so on, and I do accept and respect and value that. But I think we also have to be realistic, like you said. This particular issue affects black girls disproportionately. And so they need to have their voices heard, especially in this particular issue.
What I would say as well, if I could contribute, what I would say is that I deal with the issue of culture and the role of culture in development. And one of the things that we tend to overlook are these nuances. So we have rules that speak to anything, rules and laws, anything to what is designated as a specific drug use, where, and of course the hair issue, which isn't a legislative issue, but is it is codified. No, but the prejudice that allows it is codified, which is in many cases more stronger and more subtle than actual law, as most cases of prejudice. What I liked is that you touched on even though it's a national issue, that it affects a particular group of citizens disproportionately. And the very concept of a republic, and we just ended the Republic Celebrations Month. The concept of a republic is that even though there may be a majority, for example, the rights of the individual citizens or a group of citizens should be respected.
Absolutely.
And this is where I believe the concept of cultural equity should exist and be recognized in law and in the rules of public institutions like schools. Beyond this, and I heard a little bit about you appearing on another program. You're very passionate about it. I'm Monday afternoon, I'm getting booked on this thing. How about you? You're studying psychology. How do you see this applying to your particular area of study? How does this affect, if at all?
I think this goes to conformity. Okay, so while in school, now if you're constantly being told how to wear your hair, you're constantly being told that, oh, this hairstyle is frizzy, you can't wear this is not professional. I think this has a long-term effect, and I don't think this is just a theory. Speaking after putting my views out on social media, specifically Facebook, there were a lot of comments speaking about their experiences as well. Going back to what Tamika said, it also goes to the physical aspect of it, whereby teachers are telling kids to, in one specific situation, a girl commented that the teacher told her to kneel down. She had to loose out her pony, and the teacher told her to kneel down on the floor with her hands up because of the hairstyle that she came to school with today.
Wow.
She stated that she was never the type of person to cry, or she was the type of person that she wouldn't let things get to them. But I think she's 5 years out of school now, and she said that till this day that it affects her, and that is something that she will never be able to forget.
So she received essentially disproportionate, or not even disproportionate, because in the case, if it is you're saying that the fundamental issue upon which she was punished was flawed in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of disproportionate
Yeah.
punishment, it's a case of unjust punishment.
Unjust punishment, it just
in
should
the
not have
first place.
happened.
I think
okay.
also
Sorry.
that it gives individuals a sense of self-hate,
Uh-huh.
because you're teaching kids that now this is the time where kids are more vulnerable, and whatever they listen or whatever they're going through these stages in life, and people are telling them, you know, this, and you have to adhere to this rule. You're technically learning that your hair is not tidy, your hair is not neat, your hair is not clean. You're going through life with these same things, and I think that it's evident, because the thing is, while in school, I experienced is that they were not people of other ethnicity that was telling me this. It was people of my own ethnicity telling me that my hair was unprofessional and untidy. And I don't think I can blame them, because I think it's a traumatic response, as in they heard this growing up, and they are bringing it down to us as well.
So you're saying that the actual, whilst this, okay, now I get it. So you're saying that while this, as Tamika said, this issue disproportionately impacts one specific section of the population, but it seems that also disproportionately the policing of it comes from the same section of the population.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Like I stated on social media, I think we are trying to conform to Euro beauty standards, in which to this day it is still seen, because I think this comes from a direct response from them telling us about what her hair is and how we should wear it. And I think that from listening to that, they have not quite released themselves from this hold as well. So like I said, it's just a straight traumatic response.
You're several years apart in age, as I am in relation to you.
That's fine.
But do you guys sense that there's a sort of a generational, and this is the final thing for both of you, do you guys sense that there's a generational shift when it comes to the development of these? Because you said that the conversation has long been coming, and you're glad it's finally here. Is it because that there's a generational shift?
I think there is a generational shift, and there's also an information shift, and there's also just what is allowed to be visible. I think these days, I think social media has helped in the sense that Black beauty is now no longer tokenized as exotic and so on. Now it is the standard. There are companies literally changing their entire marketing and portfolio to target Black beauty. It is now finally getting the value and recognition that it deserved. And so now with that, you have influencers on social media as well that are changing what our perceptions of beauty are, and really giving themselves a chance to celebrate their natural hair and their own beauty. It's really just changing the conversation. And of course, social media is now having a greater impact on the younger generations. And so I do think that there is a generational shift. I am mindful though that it's not used as an excuse, because there, like Crystal said, there are older adults who were affected by this. They felt the trauma, they know it's real, but they perpetuate it. You don't need social media or somebody on TV or a celebrity to tell you, you know what, this is wrong, your hair is beautiful. You shouldn't have to rely on those influential voices to tell you that. And therefore you should not be able to, you shouldn't be perpetuating it, even if you didn't have the access to that information.
Okay, so I know for you, what's going to be your further engagement with this issue from Monday going forward. So finally, let me just end it with Crystal.
Okay, so
what I would ask is this. What do you intend to do personally going forward? You're here, and I appreciate that you're here as part of this conversation. You've been very eloquent in expressing both your experience and what your opinions are on this forum. How do you personally be involved going forward on this issue? How do you envision yourself?
Okay, so I think that the best I can do is advocate online.
Okay.
I try my best to raise awareness about it online, as my friends and followers online can say that I do post a lot about this, and I have been very, very, very involved, and I've been looking on at the different episodes and this everything that the minister and the Ministry of Education have been doing. As well, I was very involved in my school, and I still have connection to some of my teachers there as well. And I have been trying my best to see what I can do within the schools as well, because I try my best to keep in touch with everyone there. I was in school the other day, and I was noticing that I was sitting, and I noticed that some of these students have their puffs out. Some of these students, they're able to, I saw weaves at times, and I was sitting, and I asked the particular teacher, I said, this is being allowed now? And she said that the headmaster of the school, he isn't really saying anything about it.
This is West End?
Yeah, this is West End. And the kids are actually being able to, we're not too ridiculous, but they're loosening up the rules a little bit.
All right, so you, just to, there's an example of the patriarchy actually
helping.
So to wrap up, where can we find you on social media?
Okay, so I'm most active on my Facebook page. A lot of people would say Instagram, but it's not Instagram for me. It's Facebook.
On your name, could you spell it for us? So?
Chrissy Carroll, ChrisssyCarryl.
Okay, so if we go to Chrissy Carroll, we can see a discussion
Yes.
on the issue. Open, your statuses are open,
It's
etc.
pinned on my page.
It's pinned on your page. All right.
That's the first thing you're going to see.
All right. Tamika,
Yes.
it's been great having you, and
Thank
I've
you.
known you for a long time. Talk to people. Meeting you for the first time. Thank you for coming, Crystal. This has been another episode of Education Spotlight. Thank you for tuning in.